Sergeant. Okay, we have a quorum, and so I will call to order the meeting of the Economic Development Commission, our regular monthly meeting, November 3rd. The agenda is basically citizen comments. If you have any citizen comments that are not on the topic that we're going to be talking about, the initial comment period is a good time to do it, but we do take citizen comments throughout the discussion, assuming we have time. We usually do. We have really no old business. The basic agenda is to simply go through our working groups and our initiatives. And so as a reminder to everyone, we're structured around the 5 priorities that we set, which are how expanding workforce housing, marketing Woodstock, expanding childcare capacity, downtown physical rejuvenation, and supporting existing and new events to grow. And our initiatives, 3 initiatives, are the community grants, the grant writer program, and storefront incentive. And there's a possibility, we hope soon, that we will introduce a 4th initiative, which is a business loan fund. But that is not yet, it's conceptually supported by the EDC members, as we discussed last several meetings, but we have not yet finalized the details of that program, and approval depends on those details. So with that, I will ask if there are any community comments. That's not right. Citizen comments. Thank you. Are there any citizen comments? Yes, Susie.
Hey, so about this time last year, you said you were going to engage the community on the whole tourist issue and stuff like that. How's that going?
Yeah, it hasn't gone at all. See, that's what happens when you don't come to the meetings. We forget about the priorities that you talked about.
Sorry, Paul.
I just not told
Right. We have not done that. And I'm just thinking, given the structure that we have, I think the marketing working group, given that the events working group is not really as active as the other 4, I think actually that the marketing working group should help with that. Patrick, it's
John, I didn't hear the.
I didn't hear. Yeah, I didn't hear what was said.
sorry. Okay, you know what? I'm going to push this here. These mics don't always work, but you know what? Since you're the only ones here, can you just come grab this? Just put it on somewhere near you. Yeah. The question was about probably a year ago. We agreed that we would convene the community to discuss the issue of over or under population of tourists, basically. Is it a good thing or a bad thing, or maybe it's not quite that black and white, but basically what could be done to make the experience good for residents as well as tourists. And we haven't, and the question was, how is that going? And the answer is we haven't done anything about it, really. I mean, issue comes up informally, but not formally. So Patrick, maybe we can talk offline about, I know the marketing working group has a full plate, but and I'm willing to help kind of organize a
jury will decide the fate of Sally McNeil, a female bodybuilder accused of.
I don't know what that was. That was from my computer.
Makes you happy, full.
I don't know why.
Busy.
Sorry.
We're
Sorry.
going to strike that for the record.
If you're going to discuss that offline, I think I'd like to be part of it because I think it directly affects downtown businesses.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I didn't mean to, I just meant to discuss the process. I mean, I think
okay.
what we talked about is to convene a public meeting where we can get public input and comment on the question of, are more visitors good or more visitors not good? But maybe more importantly, how can we, what steps, if any, can we take to make the imposition on residents as managed as possible?
Okay.
So Patrick, is that something that the marketing, I'm happy to work with you, to sort of set that up. I think I sort of envisioned something similar to the meeting we had, 3 years ago when we had, we invited people to simply come and we'll take some time to just listen to comments.
Yeah, well, I think we should. It's a hard thing to quantify. So yeah, we can talk about it, John, for sure.
Yeah, I'm not trying to solve it in this comment. I'm simply just setting up a process for doing it. We did say we would do it, and I think it's an important discussion. Beth?
Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, she's.
I know, I had to unmute.
So my question is, I think the chamber should be involved in that discussion since we are actively recruiting and hosting visitors almost year round. And I understand the question of the imposition, and we very much appreciate the locals welcoming people because they were very generous this year. But I do think it's part of the chamber's mission.
I agree completely. Would you like to either co-host it with the EDC or host it and the EDC will promote it along with you?
I'd like to talk maybe with Patrick and you
Great.
offline.
Okay, absolutely. As active, yeah, that would be, at a minimum, it should be a joint meeting. And if you want to kind of take the lead, that would be great. But if not,
Great.
we'll co-sponsor it. Okay, any other comments? All right, thanks, Susan. Okay. Oh, sorry. Beth,
Sorry.
another comment?
Well,
Go ahead.
one more, because I think that listserv, and I've had people stop into the office in the last 2 days and talk about Halloween. I hope to put it somewhere. I'm just throwing it out there right now as the need for perhaps the EDC to, since it's a huge event, I mean, it's as big as many of our events, that we discuss it at some point, not tonight, but at some point.
What are you talking?
Yeah, so if I can interpret, if I can just sort of comment, I think that there was a comment in the listserv a couple of days ago about the possibility of having the EDC help to fund the Halloween event. Basically, there's a huge candy expense. You know, I think there was probably between 1,000 and 1,500 people at that event, probably mostly local people, not 100%, I'm sure. And it's very expensive and, time consuming. And so I think that anyway, thank you for raising that, Beth. I would suggest that whenever anyone is ready to bring that issue forward, and it could be an informal, it could be a chamber, you and 3 residents of High Street or something, any kind of group that would like to bring it forward, or person, then just come to the EDC, ask to be put on the agenda, and we can start that discussion. It is.
I thought the town pays Vicky.
The town does, but
Like I said, recently,
oh, sorry.
I don't know, Charlie, you have
Someone
a
is
book of.
big.
a
I
book
think it
that's
might be in your
$3.5
house.
million a year.
It is.
Yeah. You light up when it, yeah. I think the town does provide candy, but I'm just inferring from the comment on the listserv that it doesn't satisfy the demand. So that seems like it fits into one of our 5 priorities. So I would encourage that, anyone to come forward. But Deborah? Deborah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is, I was kind of waiting for Mike to show up, but maybe he's not coming tonight. I don't know.
I don't know. He did not, usually, I don't know.
Okay, but we'd like to be a part of that conversation because we had a meeting, we had a conversation to try to talk about how best to do an events group through the EDC, since our job is not to like create events necessarily, it's to support. But some of the older events are, they're doing their own thing. We want to be able to kind of look at a calendar and say, what can we do to support the events that already exist, or look at the key moments of impact to the town and create things that take care of traffic, that give people to do when there are people coming to town, things like that, that could handle some of the issues that Suzanne brought up. So that if we're trying to create events, or if we're trying to create something through the EDC, that maybe we do it based on a specific period of time and need based on the tourists.
Well, can I actually, I see that there's Suzanne Affelt is on, but it was Susie Stoltz who brought that up. You can't see her. She's sitting here in the room, but, you don't have to respond, but Susie would be a good, the events working group right now only has 2 EDC members on it. It has worked on a few things, and we gave a couple of big grants to events, but the working group hasn't expanded beyond that. And Susie Stoltz would be a very good person to recruit from it. I know she's gonna say she doesn't have time, so you don't have to respond. But you do represent the point of view. You live right in the center of town and viscerally understand the impact that it has on
I
people.
think we just got like a whole bunch of porta johns too. That would help.
You know, I know, I understand. Yeah, she's making a specific suggestion for how to improve things, but anyway, my point is that I think we need to, the other 4 working groups are now kind of underway. The events working group has given great grants, but anyway, Deborah, let Susie, talk to
The point-
Susie and see if she can convince her.
Okay,
to join the
I
discussion.
would love that. I would love to get her perspective, because the point that we came up with is like, it's not about necessarily creating something brand new just to create something brand new. It's to help with the problems that are already going on based on traffic and et cetera. What can we do to assist?
I would hope it would be both, and just growth and making it, you know, economic development and making economic development a positive thing, not a negative thing. But anyway, we can talk about that offline. That's in any event. I'm just suggesting that Susie has a point.
Right. I'm just saying we'd like to be a part of that conversation. So
Absolutely.
please invite us.
Well, how about, yeah, and actually, well, do you want to wait? You can lead it. But do you want to wait for a group to come forward, or do you want to, about Halloween, or do you want, how do you want to, this is the events working group, basically. It's not, you should be the one to, you don't have to, you would be inviting other people, not being invited.
Nobody's talked to me about the Halloween thing, so I don't know. Are you asking me to step forward with that? I'd be happy to.
No. Let's coordinate it offline. But of course, you and Michael should absolutely be central to that discussion. And I think you would be the people to whom the Halloween requesters would come first.
Got it. I'm just saying we'd love to be a fly on the wall for the tourists conversation. Like,
Oh, of course.
that's information we need for the group.
Got it. I understand. Okay, sorry.
Can
Roger.
I just make a point that, at least from my perspective, I can't speak for Susie, obviously. This is not, the conversation that I thought we discussed having was not about tourists per se. It was about finding a balance between things that are happening in the village and the quality of life of people living in the village, or the town. I shouldn't restrict it to the village. Although probably most of the impact is in the village, and that it's not about discouraging tourism or anything else. It's just about making sure that the EDC specifically has at least an understanding of some of the needs for balance, or potentially the needs for balance.
Roger, I think that discussion is critically important.
Good, great.
I really do.
So I just wanted to make it clear. It's
And I
not-
completely support
Roll out all
that. And I'd like to be involved with it.
Absolutely. And I think you're echoing, one of you is echoing the other's point.
Yeah, okay.
I was
It's
using,
just hard to hear.
yeah, I was using bad shorthand. My apologies. I understand that. Okay, so 2 things have come out of these initial discussions, and I hope move on. One is that the marketing working group and the chamber will lead or co-lead or discuss how to convene a discussion, and maybe with the events working group as well. And then secondly, whenever there's a specific issue about an event that the working group might consider.
And John,
they'll come forward.
John, I'd like to say, I think that we need to really get the events group built out, because I think even the tourist question is really a question that the events group have, because I think Deborah brings up some good points.
Yeah.
You know, traffic management and so forth. I think I don't know if this is the best place for the marketing group to be.
Okay, no, Deborah, if that's fine, then let's have the events working group and the chamber work together to coordinate this discussion, this broader discussion. Marketing group can attend if you want to.
I'd like to attend, but I think it's a better.
That's a good point. Deborah, I didn't realize, I've sort of been waiting for that meeting that I now that you said has happened to happen.
Right, and we wanted to kind of bring it forward to talk about, and I think Michael just joined, but we're just starting to kind of look for a way to be more active and to assist. So anyway, we have some thoughts on that, and maybe part of that is bringing it to the conversation that you're talking about.
I think both of these topics this is a great way to jump in. So yes. So both of these discussions should be under the purview of the events working group with the chamber. And let's move that forward. I think that's great.
Okay.
And I'm happy to, let me know how I can sort of support that. Okay, are there any other community
Yeah.
comments? All right, the agenda, we have the minutes of this October 6th meeting are posted on the website. Could we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are passed. Okay, the agenda is to simply go through for any of the working groups and any of the initiatives to go through and see if there are any updates or topics to discussion. As a reminder, the 5 working groups reflect our 5, I'm saying this for some of the non-EDC members on the call. The 5 working groups reflect the 5 priorities that the EDC has set: expanding workforce housing, marketing Woodstock, expanding childcare capacity, rejuvenating the downtown area, and supporting events. And the 3 initiatives currently are the community grant program, the grant writer program to support grant writing, and the storefront incentive. And the 4th initiative is conceptually supported, but waiting for the details to see if we'll actually support it, which is a loan fund, a revolving loan fund to support local businesses. So what I'd just like to do is go down the working groups. If there are any, I know the childcare group has an update, but I'll just go in this order. Starting with the housing working group, I know that Trina has been sick and Jill is not on the call. So is there any update is there anyone from the housing working group? I don't think anyone is here.
I am on it.
You are on it. Okay, is there
And we did just have a meeting, but I'm not.
no particular update?
Yeah, I mean, things are still moving along and we had a call to talk about kind of long-term ideas.
Right.
And the programs that are running are still running well, but
Right.
beyond that, I'm not prepared to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We have 5. I think we have given out five
Yeah.
instead. We've created or supported 5 new long-term rental units. And are there people still also in the pipeline?
I don't,
I thought there was one
Call.
last time, but no,
Yeah.
okay.
From
sorry.
what I
Is
remember,
that the
last meeting there was one.
program to incentivize creating subsidiary housing?
There are two
Two.
incentives. One is accessory dwelling units and one is conversion of short-term rentals to long-term rentals. And we have successfully
Great.
created in both programs. I can't remember, one of them is 3 and the other one is 2.
Right, I believe the ADU.
I hate to
more.
say toot your own horn, but you should probably put something in the listserv or the paper or something.
Right, we actually did put exactly that point in the listserv in announcing this meeting, but we should, but no, it was,
You were late for a week, so.
no, I'm not offended that you're not reading my post, but no, but I think the housing group and soon the childcare group and the marketing group have all been very active and we need to think about how to get the word out.
Well, that's a success. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a small, it's a step.
And we're not done. I really do think that there are going to be more.
Yeah.
So,
And I think the biggest thing was that there's a lot of people that are, now that they understand
Right.
the issue, I mean, it's worked just to sort of raise the consciousness of the community that this is an issue and that there's some easy solutions. And some people have stepped up without participating in the programs to say, how can I help? So.
Great.
someone, is
Deborah.
that Mika or Deborah? Sorry, did you want to?
I was gonna add that there are, is also looking at other incentives that they want to add. Potentially being, somebody sharing a house or things like that. So that they're coming up with some really great stuff.
And I believe they were planning to attend the planning committee, right? The planning committee meeting and talk about collaboration,
You mean with this planning and zoning board?
planning and
Yeah,
zoning
right.
board. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. Anything else on housing? Okay. Marketing? Patrick and Beth?
Okay, well, we're in the process right now of developing the big plan, to present towards the beginning of the new year. In terms of how we're doing so far, the program is working really, really well, driving a lot of traffic, capturing a lot of names, building up our email list. We had, just to give you an idea, we had 42,000 people go to the website, and we're significantly increasing volume from year over year. I don't have the specifics for year over year. I'm actually working on developing a new report that we can use and present to the EDC. So I don't have something to show, but at the same time too, we're building our lists for Facebook and Instagram. And once I get this put together, I'll give you stuff, John, that we can put up on the website.
Okay,
But we're kind of in the middle of planning for next year and continuing the program this year. One thing that we did test, initially for the initial program in the summer, we tested a dollar value, $100 gift card versus a night at the Woodstock Inn and Resort. And for this fall session, we're testing a night at the Blue Horse B&B versus the Woodstock Inn and Resort. In dollar value versus Woodstock Inn, the Woodstock Inn won out. And right now it looks like the Woodstock Inn and Resort is also winning in terms of the B&B versus Woodstock Inn versus the Inn, which makes sense because the Inn has such a high value in terms of people knowing who they are. So we're just literally at the beginning of starting to look at the numbers and everything. So there's a lot more work to do.
okay, thank you. Any comments or questions for Patrick or Beth? Do you want to add anything? And then, no, Larry?
Patrick, this is probably a tough question, but one of my main interests really in getting people to come to Woodstock is it seems like we have a lot of tourists now, and of course we want to have tourists here at some level. My real hope is that these tourists will convert to residents. We'll bring families here, build houses, reduce our taxes, continue to create a really nice environment. Is there any way to track that?
Not right at this second. I mean, we are building our future plan in mind, but right now there's not. Right now we focus the first part is on driving people to Woodstock, but tourists mainly. But we are building part of the continuation of the program would be to build in both people who want to live here versus businesses who want to move here as well. But we're just starting that, and that'll be part of what we want to do. The struggle we have right now is there's not a lot of housing inventory. So you got to be careful not to be too successful at something that will frustrate people. And so we're trying to balance that out right now. And that's part of the thinking going forward into the plan we're going to present for the bigger plan.
Susie and then Beth.
So we noticed, do you know where the tourists are hearing about Woodstock? Because we've noticed a lot more Asians and people from like India and Pakistan and Turkey. And I'm just curious where these people are learning. It's just been a very interesting change in the types of people who are coming here.
We can't hear, John.
Yeah, we can't hear.
The question is, there seem to be a lot of people from Asia, basically, and from what did you call it, Central Europe, like Turkey, and more international people. And where are they getting this? Where are they getting the information?
I can make a suggestion about that, and I would think it'd be Dartmouth College.
I'm sorry?
Dartmouth. Either the students or families of students who visit Hanover like other places to go, and we get them at the cafe all the time, and I'll have conversations with them, and either the kids are going in there and they're studying, and then dad comes in to pick them up, or while they're there they'll walk around town, but I think Dartmouth is a source
But there's also
for international students.
like around Sleepy Hollow and stuff, and I think that there is some other source. Because it's
I don't know.
a lot of people.
Okay, Beth?
Well, I couldn't hear that last comment, but I will say that many Asian visitors and visitors from different countries come with a travel brochure from away. You know,
Where?
in their
Away.
printed in their language, with the Jenny Farm, with Woodstock, with Cloudland Farm, with Sleepy Hollow, and those people, you know, are bringing their cameras, etc., and they are being driven by. I honestly don't know the detail that they're being driven to.
I think it's
by,
interesting though.
but it's very interesting that they come with, you know, flip pages of photos that they want to see.
Yes, I've
Um,
noticed this too.
Yeah.
It's like
And
there's
it-
like an Instagram account or something that's
Well-
driving tourism here.
Well, of course, there is an Instagram out there of Sleepy Hollow that was created several years ago with all kinds of filters, etc., that makes it look unbelievable. And everyone wants to see that. And we will not give that information out anymore. We've decided not to share private homes because it's such a burden on that home. But they are there for that. And then there was something else that you had asked, John. Oh,
No,
what was it?
it's just curious because there's something that is funneling people to Woodstock and we
Well-
don't quite know what it is, but it is, you know, people from Asia and they are coming with, you know, and then we should find out where.
Right.
Right. The other thing is that the local chambers, so Lebanon, Hanover, Woodstock, Hartford, and
Killing.
Vital Communities have created these 6 brochures that are printed in 6 different languages out there on the web. So they're in French, they're in Mandarin, they're in Spanish. I wish I could tell you the rest, but I'd be happy to get you that information if you're interested. But they're out there for people to, we did that with a state grant this time last year.
All right, Deborah, last comment on marketing, because then I want to move on. Deborah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think what we need to take away, what I think is trying to be said in the conversation is there is something that's happening clearly online that is having kind of a domino effect, and the fact that things are showing up in many languages and different communities around the world are finding us means that something is going right with the marketing. It's not so much you know, we're pursuing one group of people or another. It's that that it's getting wider, and therefore, you know, ideally our community is growing and becoming more diverse, whether it's tourists or long-term people. So I think it's a success when you look around and see people from all over the world. So I just wanted to say, you know, thank you to Patrick and to everybody else who started that, who may have something to do with making that happen. It's good news.
I agree. Woodstock looks very cosmopolitan on a holiday weekend.
I Beth, really, truly, last brief comment.
Really fast, I'm sorry. My comment to Larry is that it would be great to turn visitors into long-term residents, but the housing stock is so limited. I mean, you know, even for second homeowners, there's, you know, 15 houses in Bridgewater, Barnard, Comfort, and Woodstock. So
Better for sale.
John, if I could say one last thing, John, in terms of traffic coming here, it's not just the marketing stuff, but you have to understand too, and I've seen this as a lodging property. I get lots of emails from many different online engines trying to get me to put my motel and all my information on their site, and they're all international things that are coming after. So I think the international crowd is really ramping up their online activity to drive, everyone from all different countries, to the United States, and particularly a lot of Woodstock traffic. So, it's a combination of many things. And I think there's been a big push by the international crowd.
All right, that's great. All right, let's move on. It's great to hear this. It's very interesting. I just want to move on to the third one, which is childcare. So Todd is the missing member tonight. He has a personal conflict, and but asked that I summarize an update. Larry has been very involved. Mika has also been involved, and so feel free to chime in. Todd wanted the working group has been quite active, and I think we all know that childcare constraints are a significant impediment to people who have lived here. We have direct evidence of people who are moving away because they can't find childcare. They've told us very directly, and they've moved, and other people who are considering moving away. The childcare working group has now met and had comprehensive discussions with all 4 of the local providers. And by local, I mean Rainbow, the WCCC, which the Woodstock is at the Woodstock Catholic Childcare, no, Woodstock Congregational Church. Sorry, the Congregational Church. The above Rainbow, the TCC. What does that stand for?
Community campus.
Community campus, and the new childcare facility.
Did you say Woodstock Nursery?
Oh, sorry. No. Yes, there are 5. Sorry, at Woodstock Nursery, and the new childcare provider in Bridgewater, right over the line, who are serving almost entirely Woodstock people. Of those 5, 4 of them expressed an interest in expanding their capacity. Woodstock Nursery, which is why I forgot the Mika, has basically said that they do not have an interest in expanding. We are expecting the working group is going to host a public meeting at which each of the 4 providers who have specific ideas to expand are going to invite those groups and members of the EDC and the public to come to that meeting, which will be sometime between now and the next EDC meeting in December. To basically think of it as a pre-application, to basically vet and question and understand the proposals that are coming from these 4 groups. I'm about to summarize them in the very briefest of terms so that you're aware of it. And not only that you're aware of the proposals, but that you're aware of the scale of what we will soon be asked to consider, because this to me is hitting, leaving aside the specific merits of each of these proposals. We have to deal with those specifically, but this is precisely what we said we wanted to get to. And this is absolutely, if we do this, if these proposals meet our, in our judgment, will help the problem. I think this will have a major impact on Woodstock. There are 4 segments of childcare that the working group has studied. I'll call it daycare under 3 and daycare age 3 to 5. And then there's after school under 3 and after school older. The main needs are in all of the after school segments and the under 3. There's some very, very small needs in the 3 to 5, but that segment is for the most part met. And we have proposals in all 3 of the areas where there's need, in the under 3, and in both of the age groups of the after school, below 3 and above 3, basically. If you're 3, that day you can't get childcare. But in the Bridgewater group, in total, the grant requests that we're going to get next month, and that will be discussed at the meeting, will roughly be requesting $300,000 in funding, and will create within 12 months, and the creation will start sooner than that. It will ramp up. We'll create between 60 and 80 childcare slots, roughly 40 slots in the under 3, which is where this most serious shortage is, and then somewhere between 15 and 35. 10 to 20 slots in the young after school group, and 5 to 15 slots in the older after-school group. And there's one other proposal that could be coming later that would expand that older after-school group further. We do need to check, the working group does need to make sure that we're not oversupplying the market. I don't think this will. I think this will meet the need, but we have to check. We did a survey of about 100 people to try, and we have data on some of the sizes of the waiting lists, which are considerable. So it looks like somewhere between 60 and 80 new spaces would be created. The request for that funding would be about $300,000. The criteria that we've asked each of the providers to demonstrate, and which at least some of the proposals have demonstrated, the others are working on it, is if we provide this funding, will it bring you to a sustainable business model? In other words, if we give you $90,000 so you can get 20 more kids, and that's one of the proposals. When you get those 20 kids, once you've ramped up and you've got the teachers and you're paying them either a better wage or you're giving them healthcare benefits or whatever in order to retain them, and you're getting the revenue from those 22 kids based on the current market rate for the revenue, will you be breaking even? Or will you be still losing money? And you're going to come back next year and say, well, that's great, we need another 90,000, otherwise we have to get rid of the kids. I mean, the positions, not the kids we won't be getting rid of.
Is that specifically for Bridgewater? Is
That happens to be the proposal for Bridgewater, this numbers, but the proposals that
I got it.
are the same for all of them. And so the proposals that we are getting, give us detailed, business plans month by month. Here's who we're going to hire. Here's what kind of rooms we're going to put them in. Here's how many kids we think can go into those rooms by law. And here's what the revenue would be when we fill those slots. And so if this plan works, it feels like it will go, I don't want to say that there won't ever be a shortage, but I think it will fill, on the order of magnitude of all of the unmet demand. And I think that would be, and it should be a one-time grant.
I have a question.
So, there are going to be two chances to discuss this with the providers. One is at the public meeting that we hold sometime in November, and the other is at next time EDC meeting, when these proposals will hopefully be presented to us for a discussion and for funding. Okay, questions, Joe?
Okay. At the last, I think it was the last meeting we had, we discussed this, and I brought up the point of, I think what is being proposed is Woodstock kids.
And employees of Woodstock.
There you go. That's that's a concern.
Yeah, no, I think
they can live in Bridgewater,
right,
but they're working in Woodstock. Can their kids go?
So let's talk about so we have not yet drawn up the language, but we've had a discussion, and Larry and Mika, you can correct me, but I know we've had a discussion with some of these providers about this issue, and all of the ones we've had a discussion with have agreed. The basic idea is, if we're going to fund X% of your capacity, we want the new positions to be given for Woodstock residents, children who live in Woodstock, or children of people who work in Woodstock.
Yes.
To get first priority at those slots. We're not saying that you can't fill them with people from other towns, but only after you've taken the Woodstock people off of the waiting list for the proportion of the funding that we're giving you. And that will be, I believe, this is up to the working group to recommend, but I believe that will be a requirement for any of the grants. And the discussions that I've been in, which have been with 2 of the groups of the 4, they understood that and they said, okay, that's reasonable. They could agree to that. So I don't know, Mika and Larry, do you want to add anything to that? And then any questions?
No.
No, that's how I understand it as well. Sorry, Larry, go ahead.
Okay, Susie, you had a question?
Yeah, so no, it's just a recommendation that November meeting, if you want parents to come, it has to be the time where they can get babysitters. So like maybe a Saturday, where they can have kids. One parent could watch like 7 kids in the park or something like that.
Well, maybe we can offer childcare at the meeting.
Have childcare.
Get a corral, some pizza.
But that's a concern because I know that
Puppies.
a lot of my friends who have kids can't come to meetings because they don't have babysitters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that has been discussed pretty extensively with these meetings. And so we've tried really hard to make sure that we can accommodate times that are reasonable for people with small children.
Childcare at the meeting would be great.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Brilliant, yeah.
Oh, wait, that was mine. Sorry. Yeah, Roger.
So I think this is the best news I've heard about Woodstock government for a very long time. I have to say, sounds like exactly like the highest impact that the EDC could be doing. Knowing you, I imagine that you have looked very carefully at the economics of how the childcare business works. Do you have a sense that these can be sustainable?
The two, one proposal that was put forward. So, sorry, we created a framework, a financial framework that we asked people to fill in.
Okay.
And I would say that the providers have had varied degrees of adherence to the spreadsheet or to the concepts behind the spreadsheet. But I think we know that it's possible for the economics to work because one of the groups understood immediately what we were asking and was immediately able to give us an effective business plan that showed within, I think, 14 months that basically the revenues catch up with the expenses.
That's
what happens is you hire a teacher, they say you can't get the kids the day you hire them, you need a ramping up, and here's what the ramp is, and we've done it before and we can do it again, and they know what they're doing. So the answer is it's possible. Now, I will tell you that the 4 proposals, at least that I've seen at a high level, don't all adhere to that. They're all well-intentioned. They are all talking about expansion. They have identified what's stopping them from expanding and what it would cost to overcome it. So these are good focused ideas. I think whether all 4 of them turn into a business plan that we could approve on December 3rd or whatever the date is, maybe it might need a little bit more work, but it's very encouraging, because remember where we started was we sent out requests to meet with the groups and no one answered the request. Remember, we had an EDC meeting where we were saying, well, the working group tried, we reached out to everybody, nobody answered.
I specifically mentioned, that doesn't seem to be any will out there to really get involved with this. That's how limited the feedback was at that time.
So the working group has done somehow either, I don't know, some combination of the providers and the working group have completely changed that dynamic.
Great.
It's very exciting.
And I would just suggest that for anybody who is putting together a business plan that doesn't necessarily make sense, that it would be well worth the time of this group to help them write that business plan and understand how to go forward.
That's already what's happening. I mean, that's
great. Excellent.
There's back and forth. Yeah, that's how.
So thank you to the
Well,
group.
it's really Mika, Larry, and Todd, and Joe has been involved also. I don't know. Well, all 4. Sorry,
Very limited in my part.
No, like I say, this is the best news I've heard out of Woodstock government for quite a while.
It's exactly what the working groups are.
It's been a good news meeting.
Yeah, right. All right. There's no one.
Glad you came.
The downtown revival. Sorry, any other questions or comments about childcare? Okay.
John,
Yeah.
I just would throw in that I have been lucky enough to be meeting with all 4 of those groups, and Woodstock is very lucky. We have got some very intelligent, motivated providers out there. They're very high quality, every single one of them, and I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I agree completely. Okay, downtown revitalization. I don't see anyone who's on. Well, Joe, sorry. Sorry about that. I forgot you.
But Stuart's the chair.
Yeah. Is there any update? Do you want to give any update?
Not really. Stuart was going to try to put together a budget for a couple of ideas. He's been out of town. He had a son graduated from a place down south. He was gone for a couple of weeks. I'm sure next meeting there'll be something available.
Okay. And then events. Sorry, we talked a little bit about events. Deborah, is Deborah still here? Her camera's off. Deborah or Michael, do you want to say anything? Deborah, Michael, before you came on or as you came on, Deborah was giving us a little bit of an update. Go ahead, one of you. Who wants to go? Michael?
Yeah, so we met and we're just trying to figure out like how to function as an events group, because we can't sit around and wait for people to approach us to say, oh, we finally have someone that wants to have an event and needs some help with it. So we're kind of thinking about how to restructure our committee to be more proactive with events. And so I think there's a lot more coming. I just don't think we're ready to kind of present yet. So probably in the next meeting.
Deborah, anything to add?
No, the only thing that I want to do is let Michael know exactly what I said prior to him getting onto the call, which was that the idea is to make sure that we support the things that are going on in town and the needs of the town, whether it is looking for more people or how to engage the people that are here in a way that makes it easier to get around town and more to do.
Okay, Beth?
Well, I'm just happy to chat with any of them, either of them, about what we're doing. Wausau is expanding a little. I mean, we're taking baby steps, but Pentangle is having a show on Thursday night. We're doing wagon rides Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Pentangle has also added the VSO on the Wednesday following Wausau weekend. So I think you're going to see, I mean, we are taking baby steps, and I know that we don't want to inundate the town, but this is such an amazing event. And so if either of you or any of you want to participate, we have places for you during the weekend.
Awesome. Maybe we can set up a meeting in the next week or so. Yeah. Okay. I'm game. Thumbs. Okay.
All right, thank you. That's great. And we'll look forward, Michael, and Deborah and Beth to, continued developments. Okay, under the three programs, the community grant program, the grant writer, and the storefront incentive. Let's just briefly, I don't think there's anything to report on storefront incentive. The program is still in place. It still has funding. We haven't discussed it I think occasionally we sort of say, should we cancel it or just keep the funds in there? There's not a lot of funds, but it's probably enough for one more storefront or maybe two, or probably one. And we haven't had an application in, quite a while.
Can we publicize that more? I don't think people understand what it is. I think it's a communication thing.
Well, no, I don't. I think that sure. I mean, we absolutely can. In most cases in the past, I can't remember. In most cases, the people they find out about it when they're starting to investigate an empty store at front, and the landlord sort of tells them about it. And so there's been not a lot of instances where people move in and don't move into a new building. And it's a very limited space. It's not anywhere, in Vermont. It's just in the downtown physical area. So I'm not opposed to, communicating it, but I think in the past through word of mouth among building owners and realtors and so forth, they seem to have found it. Joe?
Yeah. I was on a commission when it first was introduced, and the concept was for it to be an incentive and partly make it, how should I say this, a little easier for somebody to occupy one of the empty stores that we had downtown. It never really caught on. I mean, it was a great idea, a lot of good ideas. They don't all work.
Right.
I don't think this one was something that ignited everybody. It was just.
That's wild. Yeah.
Oh, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's still there.
It's still
but
there.
Nobody really gets excited about it.
I think the people who got the money got excited about it.
Yeah, they did. But the people who got the money didn't do it because that was there. They didn't open the storefront, or that wasn't the persuasive factor that dissuaded them one way or the other. I mean, they learned about it after they opened, or while they were opening. It wasn't like a
Didn't change their
persuasive
decision.
tool.
That's probably right.
Right.
Okay. Mika?
Just out of curiosity, how many empty storefronts do we have right now? Does anybody know?
Well, There, well, I'm guessing.
Well, we have some, Mika, but there's plans in the works for a couple of them already. So to kind of nail down how many are empty, are remaining empty, I think it's hard to understand right now.
Yeah, I mean, but I think we're kind of at a, is it crazy to say we're at an all-time low? It feels like, most of the buildings, if they're the ones, as you just said, the ones that are empty, I feel like a lot of them have plans
Yes,
and aren't going to be empty for long.
yes, that's true.
Here's something to consider. So how many storefront between the rec center and Worthy?
He loves to bring this one up.
How-
He loves
I
this
love it.
number. He just.
You know what, John, the amount of times you've asked this question, I wish I could remember the answer from the last one.
The order of magnitude, there are 100 retail storefronts between Worthy Kitchen and the rec center.
That's John Spector
And
trivia.
from
You
what
gotta know that.
From what I can tell, there's never been more than 10 of them vacant at one time. And there's probably never been less than 7 of them vacant at one time, which
That's right.
basically means that on
That's right.
average, if you do the math, a storefront is vacant once every 12 years. And my guess is if you went to Manhattan, you would find exactly the same thing. Maybe it'd be once every 17 years or something like that. It's the most important, to me, the most important factor in understanding economic development in Woodstock is having patience. The stores fill up, every 12 years, someone goes out of business. It takes 2 years. We'd like it to take 2 weeks, but it takes 2 years. Someone else comes in and fills it in. So, and maybe the storefront incentive doesn't do much to change that dynamic, but in any event, it does feel like we're in a good, it does feel we're in a good place and not just with storefronts, but also with some of the other residential buildings that are being renovated in town and the new storefronts like the Mangalitsa enhancement and so forth.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Mika.
Mika.
Finish up.
One more quick question. Does anybody know what the plan is for Jess's spot for for who is Sylvia?
For what?
Who is Sylvia?
Oh, Sylvia, yeah, I know, but
Gonna
I can
turn
tell
it
you.
into a restaurant or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Someone's bought it.
Someone bought it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
it was bought years ago, a couple of years
Bought
ago.
it from the guy who owns Farmhouse Pottery, bought it.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
That's correct.
He
That-
told me that.
That's correct.
I just wanted to say a couple things. One is that there's probably, well, anyway, so Splendid Banks is finally going into, as you probably saw and were part of, the T'other House on the green. So that's somebody that John had recruited, I think, and then they came to the market on the green for the last 3 years.
Hmm.
And have now been able to rent a space, and they're doing cupcakes and cakes, etc. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And I want you to think about the market on the green as perhaps a business development. And I'm only saying that because we have the Splendid Banks, we have Abracadabra Coffee, and we have Farmhouse Pottery, who all started selling at the market on the green and expanded their business into Woodstock. And I think it's fabulous, and you might want to look there for other business opportunities.
Well, can I actually suggest that fits into the events group, the newly revitalized events group?
That was my suggestion, if you remember when you had that, open up a coffee bar in the green.
Yeah, it could, but I don't know, Deborah and Michael, you don't have to agree or disagree now, but I would just think about whether or not that's an event that has a different kind of economic development benefit for Woodstock, but it has all of the physical characteristics of an event.
Right.
So thinking about what would funding that, what would that do?
John, I have a question for you. If we
Oh,
fund,
Hold on, Beth, one second. Go ahead, Deborah.
oh, sorry, did I interrupt Beth? I'm sorry.
I think she was answering my question probably. Beth, go ahead. No, you're muted, Beth.
I just wanted to say, we're not looking for funding. I mean, we love your support. We're not looking for funding. It's a great event. And I think that that this group might learn from it, maybe help those who have been here year after year after year,
Mm.
create a
But what if-
space for those folks.
New business. No, I hear what you're saying.
I mean, what if you had a salesperson? What if you had a part-time salesperson who was going out and recruiting businesses? That may be a terrible idea, but I'm saying that you.
It's a terrible idea.
My
I think
point
Beth
that
is
you-
saying, John, I think Beth, what she's saying is, look at the people who come to the market green and, you know, and sell their wares there, and maybe look at one of those as being a new business in Woodstock. Is that what, that's, I think,
Yeah.
what Beth means, you know, use them as an economic development, you know, for a new business within
Pipeline.
Woodstock, as opposed to looking to get people to be on the market on the green. Get one of the people who is currently on the market on the green to, you know, take a building and make a business out of
People
it.
that have been successful have Laura White Pottery, for
Yeah.
instance. They're she's fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
Thanks for
Any other-
saying that, Beth.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
thanks.
I was just wondering, you know, if we go completely all in with this childcare, how much more, you know, what does that do to what's available for these, for other things? Or are we then
Yeah.
saying, you know, because that's 300,000.
Right, so we have about, so this year, so at the end of this year, we will have about between $450,000 and $500,000 in reserve. Our revenue this year will be about $350,000. So, and I believe we're on an upward trend. So I think we will have $350,000, you know, barring, well, I mean, there could be a recession next year. So, you know, those are the orders of magnitude. It will make a big dent in what we have, but there'll be room for all of the
Other
groups.
things. Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm not saying that I don't support it. I think it sounds wonderful. I just
Right.
wanted to know if we're like putting our flag and going, we're childcare this year and there's nothing else. Or
I think
it doesn't sound that way.
No, I think we have funds for real, you know, for big
Other
ideas
things.
that are really
Yeah.
powerful. We have the funds.
I
Okay,
hope
let's
not.
just,
This marketing is gonna be.
Yeah.
Be hurting then.
yeah. Okay, Patrick, can you do 2 minutes on the grant writer? Because I want to finish with the
Yeah.
community grant
Real,
program.
real quick, the grant writing, we haven't had any grants written yet, but we've had a lot of people that we're talking to. We're just, the hardest part with the grant writing is finding the grant to fit somebody into, and managing their expectations, you know, because people think you can get a grant for, you know, just anything, and, you know, grants are usually very, very specific. We did, sit down and have a breakfast with, Allison and, Charlie Kimball, which was very enlightening, and we're working with getting the information from them for some of the state grants and stuff that are available. And there's some people that have applied for some of the things that would be the state grant. So it's a lot of just digging and finding and hunting and trying to match the grant with the people. And right now we haven't had any, but we've got one we're trying to work on with the Mountain Creamery that has a possibility to help them do some expansion and so forth. So it's just digging and finding and hunting and trying to match people up. But it's been, so far, we've had a fair amount of people who have gone to the website and filled out the forms. It's just, we haven't been able to find the right things for people.
Before I forget, Patrick, have you talked with Stuart Matthews about his discussions with Gyro Billings and in that?
I have not.
Okay, could you just remember that that's an opportunity and there are grants available for that.
Who is this?
It's just Stuart Matthews. And I'd rather talk about it offline if it's all right.
Okay, I just want to write the name down, so
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
thanks.
All right, then lastly, the community grant program. So, and I apologize for this, Deborah and I were supposed to draft an announcement that we were going to announce the community grant program. Deborah did her part to at least tee up the discussion. Hey, you were going to send me something, blah, blah, blah. So I never sent it to you, Deborah. Obviously, well, you know that, but now the rest of you do. I apologize.
Public shaming.
No. So you, sorry, but the last step that I wanted to take before we announced it has been taken, which is that we, in the form of I, and maybe a couple of you were there, went to the select board and told them that we've had 5 meetings over the last 5 months to talk about our priorities. I shared the 5 priorities with 5 working groups. I told them about the 3 programs. I told them about the possibility of a 4th program, the business loan fund, that we were investigating that. And I told them about our plans to fund $100,000 this year of community grants. And I told them of our intention to decrease that amount in subsequent years. I don't remember if I talked about the specific amounts, which we talked all about at length. They were supportive of all of that program and appreciated the update. So we have now gone through publicly and with the select, and I told the select board, I don't know that we are, I think it's a kind of a gray area whether we require your approval. In the past, the only thing they've ever voted on and approved have been our funding requests. But that we wanted to give them a chance to provide us with any feedback if they had any concerns about the program and the priorities. They were very supportive of it. They asked some questions about the loan fund. And I think they actually indicated that they liked the idea of the loan fund as well. I think if I remember the comments, but there were no negatives about any of it. So we're sort of cleared to go. I would just like to talk about the timing and the communication. And then in fact, then repeat the offer. Deborah, if you're still willing to work with a recalcitrant writer like me, so the 2 of us, if you would delegate to us the writing of the invitation, but I just like to talk about what the announcement should say. We've agreed in the past that at the past meetings that we're going to use the same criteria. We'll use the same application form. We'll get rid of the pre-application. I think the timing that we could have is if we get this out in a week on November 10th, we could give people 2 months to apply. That would take it to January 10th. We could have our meeting. We could have our meetings before the end of January and have the grants approved by the select board by the middle of February. That seems to me to be a good balance in terms of timing. And I want to talk about what we would, the points we would make in the announcement, which I think are pretty simple. But before that, can we, just since I raised the timing first, people comfortable with that timing? What it would mean is near the end of January, second half of January, we would have, you know, I'm guessing because it's a smaller number that we might have a smaller number of applicants. And so we would have some evening or evenings the way we did before, 20, you know, same format in the second half of January. I see people here.
I don't see why we wouldn't speed that up, John. 2 months. I mean, people who are going to apply are going to apply. I mean, I don't think giving them 2 months for say a month and a half is.
Well, the only difference is the month and a half is in the week of Christmas, basically. And so there's kind of, I think doing it,
That's true.
we should either do it on December 20th, but not, or January 10th, but not January 1st or 2nd.
Yeah,
It's like having to write a paper for your teacher over Christmas vacation. So.
Yeah, I forgot about Christmas. So sorry.
So are anyone opposed to that schedule, November 10th and January 10th? Okay. So in terms of the announcement, I think there are I think there might be 2 sensitive points. One has to do with whether or not we mention, and if we do mention, how we mention and why we mention that we're going to be distributing $100,000 in grants.
No.
Okay, well, that's the first sensitive point. And let me just say what the second sensitive one is, then we'll come back to. And the second sensitive point, well, that's the first one. Let's just talk about that. Does anyone have a point of view? Well, Joe said, go ahead. I will tell you, by the way, that the select board, which has been uninvolved with this.
I think it's
sounded
great
like,
that we
okay,
have that
whatever.
amount.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about the idea of saying, but hey,
Oh,
we
we
got
can look
this
at
much money.
No,
Who wants what? You know, I think we should look at the applications and see what is applicable to the money that we have available. I wouldn't, my personal opinion, just my personal opinion, I wouldn't announce, we've got $100,000, come and get it.
No.
I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that. I would
Patrick, and then
disagree.
Roger, go ahead.
And I would disagree with that because we need to set the expectation, and the expectation is we're looking to do big things. And I think we should, when we announce this, we should say, here are some of the big things we're going to be doing, you know, and that are on the block, and let people know, because if we don't let people know, we're not being transparent. And I think better to have it out there and let people say what they're going to say but we've set the priorities. We've had a half a dozen meetings on setting these priorities. And I think we should just stick to our guns and let people know what's what.
Okay, Roger,
I mean, this is a public meeting,
yes.
so you're talking about.
Well, we've talked about.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
meeting.
So this is, I mean, I would just say, to the extent that there has been dissatisfaction with people who maybe didn't get grants, it's because they didn't fully understand or fully know what the expectations were. So I would be as explicit and clear as possible. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying the organization with the input of the public and the select board, the EDC with the input of the public and the select board, decided to go after big initiatives such as eliminating the childcare problem.
Right.
And I don't, I think that's great PR. And then you just make very clear that these are the expectations. This is how much money we have to give out, and the decisions will be made based on our best understanding of the benefits.
And you already know who's gonna complain.
Yeah, Deborah and then Mika,
And I got one.
and then Marion. Deborah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with what's being said here now. So I mean, which is just transparency is the best way of doing it. And we have this to spend. We're looking for this doesn't mean like we're going to give it all away, or give it all out. So, I mean, I think that's part of the languaging thing that we'll work on, John. But I just want to be, I may be misunderstanding what you're saying. It's not that we have $100,000. We're looking for people to put in grants proposals at $100,000. It's that we have $100,000 that we're spending. We're looking to spend on grants in these categories. And then we're also looking for the larger grants. Isn't that correct? They're two different things.
The in these categories is not a constraint. I think the way I've talked about it, and I feel to some extent we've talked about it, but I want to clarify this, is that the big proposals, the working groups are focused on the 5 priorities. We are
Right.
seeking from them big proposals. We are
Right.
also, I would say, seeking from the public big proposals. If,
Right.
If some group of people comes and says, we want $200,000 for childcare, and that's a better proposal than the 4 we have, we ought to give them the money. And so we are, and remember that we've decided that on the big grants, there's not going to be an annual cycle. We're going to take them as they come. So that so that the announcement would presumably say, if you have a big grant in these 5 areas, come to us anytime.
Yes.
We are soliciting proposals in these 5 priority areas at any time, if they're big. Don't come to us with a $2,000 proposal unless somehow magically it's going to have a huge impact. However, we are also not restricting to those 5 categories. We are allocating up to $100,000 to once a year on an annual schedule to members of the community for grants that are small and that or of any size that are either in those 5 areas or not. Something that is, it just has to be economic and community development, and come to us as a member of the community and something that you think would develop the economy or the community. And so it's not in any that's the category, economic and community.
I get what you're saying. I think somebody had said that then people would be going for larger grants, and that's not what it is. The 100,000 is for grants of any size.
It's the pool, correct?
It's right. And so I just think we need to make exactly what you're saying. That needs to be specified.
Well, based on that, and I withdraw my objection. I didn't completely understand it, and
Okay.
You're
okay with it?
I made a mistake.
Change your mind. Okay,
I
good.
changed my mind.
All right. So Deborah and I will be transparent. And oh, sorry, Marion, I forgot. Sorry.
No, it was just a communication thing that I just think the way that information is received and perceived, it might be helpful to just make 2 separate announcements. You know what I mean? Just to make an announcement that says, we're going to spend up to 100,000 of our budget in this round, and we're seeking applications due November 10th. And then in a separate announcement, say, here's what we're doing with our big money. Just because I feel like the way people receive information, it's just a lot at once, and it's confusing, and they don't necessarily need to be received together?
I kind of agree with you and kind of disagree with you because from a transparency standpoint, with the first question I would ask is, well, you gave 320,000 out last year. Why only 100 now?
But that's why I would be, careful to say, on November 10th, we are going to start a process to give away 100,000 of the annual budget that we will be giving away. And then, right, so it's just.
Why 100? Why not 300?
So,
Why not
and so
200?
I would assume that, like, if I read that, the way that most people read things, just not paying that much attention, would be, oh, they're giving the rest away at a different time. Right? So if you just say like, this is what we're giving away right now, this is the process.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's like
certainly
tricking
have all
them.
the details on the website, but I just think on the listserv, I might not try to put everything
Alright.
all at once.
Well,
I'm going to disagree heavily because people are going to complain. They're going to say it's only 100,000 and they need to understand why. And I think as someone in the audience said, this is a big deal with the childcare thing and big solutions and big change and, big things happening as opposed to a bunch of little things. So I think you just got to be upfront with people, say, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And these are the anticipated things that are happening.
Mika, I think you raised your hand and I forgot to call on you.
No, that's okay. I was going to just sort of echo the need for transparency and, on both the front end and the back end. And, an echo that I'm not psyched about the listserv comments that are coming our way, but they're always from the same people. So, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all saying the same thing. Although I think also there is something to be said about the way people process information. I mean, this wasn't why I raised my hand, but I'll just say there is something to be said about the way people process information and sadly, the attention span we all have. And so when you're looking at a listserv post that's long and is identifying, however many things, it's possible that people won't read it all or they'll skim it and then they'll be mad that they didn't get all the information that we were clearly sharing because they didn't bother to read through the whole thing. So I think there might be a good reason to maybe break up our communications into chunks. But that's not my level of expertise. So I leave that to all of you who are much smarter than I am.
Deborah, your hand is poised to be raised, but not being raised. If you're going to sit there like this, you need to move it up or down. You have a thought?
I can't.
No, I love it. I love what everybody's saying. And I think it's somewhat.
She just wants to go to the bathroom.
Well, I would say that, let's put it this way, Deborah, why don't you, and if the group will delegate to us, why don't we work on it? If we are going to combine it, let's make sure we focus on kind of brevity and simplicity and point people for more information to other pages,
Right.
or we'll separate it.
Yeah, and there's the call to action part, and then there's the like,
The
sort of,
details.
here's what we've done part.
And
which are
there's-
kind of two separate,
And it's like the announcement. This year, there'll be 2 different ways of doing it. Brief. And then the next day it'll be like 1,
Right.
next day it'll be 2. So
Yeah,
it's like,
to me, I think it's important that personally that the call to action be clear that what we don't want is people submitting big proposals on housing, as an example, in the community grant process, because they have a better way of doing it and we'll give them, so I want to take out of the community grant process the things that would fit better with the working groups.
Yes.
So as long as we can get that call to action part, make it clear that it's separate, then we can do the what we've achieved and so forth is not part of this messaging. That's a different challenge.
I just think it's going to be difficult to be completely clear about it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to be.
It has to be
it's
simple and
easy to be
understandable.
confusing,
Yeah,
you know?
okay. Well,
But I think it can be clear. I think you just have to say.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm
we're
not
doing it-
saying it shouldn't be. I think it's going to be
No, no, no.
difficult to be clear.
Yeah.
Well,
Alright.
but I think it's as simple as this. I think we're making it more complicated. We don't need to explain everything. We just need to say, we're doing $100,000 this year in community grants. And here's the reason why. We're going to be doing some big grants that people can come and do, but we're going to be some big grants that are going to be big changes and for more information, go here.
Here's
And that way
executive
they'll understand. But I think we need to explain why we're lowering the amount.
Okay.
Yeah,
Definitely.
We'll work on it.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm with you.
yeah, just one last observation. I mean, I trust you guys completely to develop the message. The one thing I want to be wary of, and it happens with, social media, with the listserv, whatever, is there's some very loud people, and we end up presenting our messaging because we're afraid of, how they'll interpret it, instead of developing a messaging to say like, okay, what about all the people that are just checking the listserv every now and then, don't know what's happening, and could have a great grant, and how do we present the information? I just would love for us to prioritize making it clear for them, rather than sort of worrying about some people that are going to complain no matter what, and framing it
That's
for the
fine.
wrong people.
I think that's good
Great
advice.
point.
I mean, I just, as a former communications professional and member of the public, the message in the listserv should be 2 paragraphs
Right.
and maybe
Maximum.
4 bullet points.
Maximum.
And it should start with, here are the initiatives the EDC is taking. We are also inviting grants up to, we are allocating up to $100,000 for grants that meet any of these criteria. And then you have a landing page on the website that gives you all the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're overthinking
Yeah.
this a little bit.
Okay, I think we have good direction, and Deborah and I will
Hammer it out.
we'll work it out. Yeah, okay. There's one other question about what we announce. And that has to do with trying to be clear, and we don't have to do this in the same announcement, by the way, but is trying to be clear about whether for-profit businesses, how should for-profit businesses look at the community grants process, I guess is the way to put it. And so last year, whether we explained this well or poorly, we did explain it. Maybe we explained it poorly, maybe people didn't listen, some combination of both. But there were a number of proposals from businesses to basically, please give me money to expand my business. Expanding my business is economic development. That's true at one level and wasn't persuasive to most of us at another level. In response to that, I think many of us, some of us at least, feel that a revolving loan fund is a more appropriate tool, that more people would support the concept of a revolving loan fund for for-profit businesses.
Yes.
And so the question is whether in our communication, and actually whether it's in our communication or not, in our process, whether or not we inform and explain to businesses what we would like them to do. This is really a discussion of what would we like them to do, not whether we explain anything. What I think we would like businesses to do is to do the following: not restrict them from applying for a community grant. But if they are to get a community grant, that their proposal needs to have an explicit community benefit. That, in other words, providing a grant to a company to grow its business is not a community grant. Providing a grant to a company to build a bathroom that the public can access, that will help grow its business. Helping to grow its business is a fantastic afterthought. It's perfectly appropriate to give a grant to create a community bathroom.
So are you suggesting that childcare businesses will not be profitable?
The childcare businesses aren't for profit. None of them are for profit.
And they have an explicit community.
And they have explicit community benefit, right? Which is a kid, even if they were for profit, if a for-profit childcare company came in and said, we got 60 spaces for kids, I would give them, I mean, if it was a good proposal, we'd give them a grant.
Okay.
So in other words, we're not saying that what I would like to say is that we're not preventing businesses from proposing things in the community grant program, but that if they do, that what we would grant it on is the community benefit, not the benefit for growth. However, or if what you'd like is funding to help you grow your business, that is economic development. That's why we're trying to establish a loan fund, a revolving loan fund. And the criteria for a revolving loan fund is, are you a Woodstock business And will the loan help you to finance the growth of your business? And so that's the vehicle for businesses. We're supporting you. We're just supporting you with something, with a
Different
a
vehicle.
different vehicle that, you know. And now the challenge is that we don't yet know for sure that we're going to have a community loan, a revolving loan fund. So we have to say that we're all in favor of it if we define it, if we can get comfortable with the details.
Do we throw Startup Woodstock in another way that?
Startup Woodstock is really a private, that's a private initiative, really. So that we fund, you know, we gave a grant to. So I think we don't have control over that. Sorry, I'm biased because I'm part of Startup Woodstock, but I'll recuse myself from that part of the discussion if you want. But in any event, so that's the question of whether or not we provide any of this guidance and so forth to businesses. Mika.
I'm feeling sort of out of the loop with where we're at on the revolving loan fund. Could I get a short update on what is holding us back?
In time, we just, the work, there's, it's legal.
Yeah.
Other communities have done it. We all talked, maybe you missed this meeting, but we had a philosophical discussion among the EDC, either I think at the last meeting or the meeting before that, where we basically said, okay, if these basic operational questions can be worked out, who's going to approve the loans? What are the exact criteria? You know, should there be limits on the amounts or not? Does a bank get involved, et cetera? Is it legal? Assuming we resolve those details, we'd like to do it.
Mika, to probably better shed light on your question, is there was 3 of us involved with that. Larry, John, and I basically. Larry's been really involved with the childcare thing, and you know, that's been absorbing a lot of his time. I've been involved with the foliage business right now. It's been kind of taking up all of my time, and John is involved with 40 different things all the time. So, you know, it's just a question, like John said, it's a question of time.
I gotcha. Okay, no,
But
that's
we're
cool.
excited about it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
For
and
sure.
it'll probably happen. Well, hopefully it'll happen.
Larry,
Okay.
do you want to?
Yeah.
Larry?
Going to have a meeting with the people that are behind the loan program up in Bradford on, I think it's November 21st, to really figure out the nitty gritty. And then I think once we get that,
He's
we
arranged a meeting.
are going to go and talk to an attorney that's been involved in that sort of thing, so that we just get, there's just a lot of details to it, but I think the concept is pretty solid.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to sound like I'm criticizing anything. I just know that I had missed a meeting and I was kind of foggy during COVID and all the things. So I'm just checking to see if I missed something.
I think realistically speaking, we would announce, if we were successful, I think there's preparatory work to do that's quite detailed. And then there's discussions at the EDC and publicly where we'll all want to make sure that the details are in fact going to be legitimate. We're going to be writing checks to businesses, you know what I mean? So I'm guessing that we could introduce this program this summer.
That's exciting. That's really.
But
that's great
but
to
I
hear.
think the question for us now is, should we mention this you know, are people, I don't want to, I'm not proposing that we set a rule that says if you are a for-profit business, you can or you cannot apply for the community grant. Anybody can apply for a community grant, but I would sort of offer some guidance that says, this is at least how I'm thinking about it. If I'd like to turn that into this is how we're thinking about it. If you agree, that we're thinking that this is the vehicle, just so you know, we think it's going to be coming. We can't guarantee it, but we're all generally in support of it. We hope to introduce it this summer.
For the people involved, John, Joe, Larry, what do you think the percentage, you know, if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how likely it is to be approved and come forward, what would you give it?
I mean, how likely is this program will come to fruition?
Yeah,
I give it a 10.
you would.
Sure.
Larry, John,
I think it's going to happen.
you do.
Yeah, I give it an 8.5 or a 9. I think we could
Okay.
get tripped up, but
Then
other towns have done it, so.
Then I think we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I think we can talk about it and present it as an option with the caveat that it's not yet approved.
So I have a couple of observations. First, on the loan fund,
my personal opinion, and I know you can't quite say this, but assume it's a done deal and essentially start communicating like it's a done deal, because other people have done it. Woodstock can do it. I mean,
Sure.
it's a possibility.
They
You
can
know,
do anything.
nothing is going to derail it besides somebody stealing all the money or something.
Well, no, I tell you, there is one thing that could derail it, which is we could, if we're really successful, we could run out of money.
Okay, but that's, yeah.
That's a
so
great reason to
That's a
derail
great
it.
reason to,
But-
yeah, I'm sorry, we're out of money. We don't have any money to loan you.
Right. Well, I've been announcing a loan fund and then announcing that we don't have any money for it. We'll probably get a few comments on the list.
Oh, you said not have any money at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, we would have money in the future, but yeah. but-
Okay, and on the giving grants to private businesses, my impression from the last round, and this could be wrong, was almost none were given. And I don't want to say it was a bait and switch, but I think for very good reason. There were questions about each one of them. And those questions revolved less around whether there was public good in it, because that's going to be extraordinarily nebulous to define, but whether or not the businesses that were applying would have gone ahead and spent the money anyway. So this was not vital to their expansion, but something that, you know, I want to buy more e-bikes. You were going to buy more e-bikes. So, you know, and I shouldn't use that as an example, but so I think you need to have almost an executive session discussion about whether you really ever are going to grant money to individual businesses.
Yes.
Because my impression has been that most of the grants do not ultimately get funded.
So here's why, right, here's why the wording of that possible policy. Community grants are not available to for-profit businesses. Doesn't work, right? Yankee Bookstore, is that the name of it?
Yes.
Yes,
That shows how many books I read. Although I do buy all of the books I do read, I buy at the.
Very good.
so do I. I just bought one of the
I don't buy very many books.
Yeah.
The Yankee Bookstore decides that they want to sponsor a jazz concert on the green. Free jazz concert for the community. And they come to us, for-profit entity comes to us for a community grant to sponsor a jazz concert because they want to build, they think they want to build their customers, and they're going to stand up, and the benefit to them is they stand up and say, this is the Yankee Bookstop jazz concert. I mean, let's assume that the jazz concert is a great thing.
Yeah.
Well, just because they're a for-profit business and they have a great idea that benefits the community, we shouldn't give them a grant. Sorry, you have to. So the problem is we can't, giving grants based on who the person is tricky. And
No, absolutely. And I'm not necessarily saying that.
Yeah.
I think you should say nothing to for-profits. But I think it needs to be crystal clear.
Yeah.
That, yes, okay, this is even almost posing hypotheticals.
Yeah, right. Well, I use
That's a perfectly good.
I use the example of the public bathroom because we actually got a proposal
Yeah.
for something close to that.
Yeah.
And we would have, and had they done it, had they proposed
And
back the
so-
public bathroom, I think we
Yeah.
would have given them the money. I mean, we talked about
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so
I think, you know,
it's just
from my
gotta be
perspective, Roger,
extraordinarily clear.
Yeah.
From my
Joe, and
perspective,
then-
Roger, if this happens, if it comes to fruition, and I happen to be on the committee that's, you know, says yes or no or whatever, that portion of it, I will have a lot of trouble with. I'm going to be struggling with, you know, is it, because it's a tough call. Is it going to benefit the community or not, or is it too much of a private enterprise? I will probably have to give that a lot of thought, and that's one of the issues I'll probably.
Yeah, because a place to buy jeans would be a benefit to the community. I don't know if it's a viable business or
Okay,
not, but
so maybe, yeah, I guess the way I think about it is that if something is a good business idea, it might need a loan, but it doesn't deserve a grant.
Yeah,
And so if a for-profit business wants to do something that a not-for-profit business might want to do, like build a public bathroom or sponsor a jazz concert, then we ought to consider them independent of the fact that's who they are.
absolutely. And I agree in
But
that case, that's just, you, at that, okay, sorry.
All right, no, that's okay. Well, hold on. Deborah first and then Patrick.
This is like a definite hand raise. Okay.
Sorry, Susie, I'll get to you. Deborah.
I think the wording needs to be, and I hear what you're saying, Roger. I think the wording needs to be something along is a public benefit. Wait, public service or is a public now I'm wondering if I got the words wrong. But yeah, that it's a public service for the community, not just a benefit, it's a service. So it's something that is, yes, it may help their business, but has something else that happens that is outside of their business that benefits.
There's nothing bad about it, the way I put it. Sorry, let me let you guys talk. So Patrick and then
John,
Susan.
the
Meaning
thing that,
like great genes for everybody, that's great, but then that's a benefit, but it's not a service. Do you know what I mean? It's not a public service.
I'm gonna make it even more confusing, because John's example, I think, is a perfect example of why it's confusing. If somebody wanted to do a jazz concert, then is for the community, why would the EDC fund it?
Well, because it's an event. It's because it might.
But it's not an event. It's an event to support that business. You know, they want to say they're the sponsor, then it doesn't make any sense. You know,
We gave a grant to TEDx and they were sponsors for TEDx.
And it would be one thing if they just want to put their name on it, right?
Right,
They're saying
exactly.
that they're working it and they're organizing it and they're putting, that's different than I'm just.
That's different than I want to sponsor a jazz.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Patrick, in that vein, the consignment store downtown
Mhm.
arranged for a jazz performance, I think every Saturday afternoon. And he went around and got separate donations from the local business to pay for that. He didn't come to us for a grant. So, see what I'm saying?
That's why it gets
agree with
fuzzy. I'm
that.
agreeing with you, Joe.
Yeah,
It's very fuzzy, and I think we're gonna have to look at this as a case-by-case study.
yeah, exactly.
Susie and then Michael. Did I skip? Am I missing someone? No, okay, Susie and then Michael.
So I think this is vaguely reminiscent of like staring down the pandemic, but we are staring down higher gas prices. We are staring down potentially layoffs because there's layoffs coming, recession, lots of really ugly stuff. So I think that part of your money should be almost a fund to help businesses stay afloat if things get tough.
Well, we've executed that in the past, and I feel like we have, well, at the moment, even with the things that are on the plate, we would have funds available of the same magnitude as we gave out the last time to have that in reserve.
And I would add, we did that based on your suggestion, Susie, so you should be congratulated for that.
But you scared me when you said, well, we might not have money if we're successful.
Yeah.
Give away all the money. So I just want to make sure that there is kind of a.
Well, we'll have, I think we have to, that's always a choice that business has as to how much to invest and how much to save, so I think we'll be making that choice on an ongoing basis. I don't think we have to make it right this moment, I guess is my point. Michael?
Yeah, hi, I'm just thinking, I think Roger's exactly right. Like, I really feel like we need to hone our language down for the private businesses, because I think we're gonna get a bunch of angry people like we did this past year, because I don't, it has to be very clear. I just fear doing a repeat every year of this, where the businesses can come up and say, oh, well, this is a community service. If I provide e-bikes, that's a public service, because then people can do X, Y, and Z and tour around the town. I'm happy to work on this with anyone, but I really think we need some very, very clear language if we're gonna allow private businesses to apply.
Okay, so we definitely need clear language. I agree. Oh, sorry, Marion, go ahead.
Well, I know we talked about this, right? We talked about it when we went through the grants, and I think one of the ways that I found useful to think about it was not wanting to approve a grant that would provide a disparate benefit to one business over another. So if it benefited the entire business community, like childcare or housing or something like that, then we would support it. But if it gave a sort of what was perceived as an unfair advantage to one business, for example, like, one business is paying for the jazz concert and getting the benefit, and the other is getting it free from us, and that seems unfair. But if it's something that is sort of spread among,
Okay, well, I think that, Michael, your hand is still up. Do you want to comment or you're okay? Okay, all right. So
Yeah, done.
I think we all agree that we need to be very clear. Is it fair to say that we're not yet very clear?
yes.
And so therefore announcing
On that
some-
one issue.
on that one issue.
Yeah.
So announcing anything on that issue would probably be a mistake.
Yes.
So we won't announce anything on that issue. I think maybe what we could do, which is clear, which creates, what we could do without creating confusion is to say, by the way, we will be creating, we will likely be creating a revolving loan fund that will be available this summer, and it will be specifically targeted for businesses to help them expand.
I think that,
And then that's it.
that's
If
perfect.
someone wants to call and say, well, wait a minute, by that, did you mean we shouldn't apply? We would say, well, you are allowed, then we could have a verbal conversation with them and explain the lack of clarity until we're clear. In other words, we can't, I mean, it's 8 o'clock, basically. We need to announce
To watch all the videos from our negotiations
Right.
from last year. if
So
they-
I think this is a topic for us to continue. And I also think, by the way, that if we have this discussion at our next meeting, and we can and I think we can, some of us can propose some language and frameworks, language that we could use to be clear. If we announce this in middle of December, which is halfway through the grant process, I think we can avoid most people getting angry. I think they were upset perhaps because they found out in the meeting, or we all found out in the meeting how we felt. We didn't really know until the meeting happened. And this time, at least, we can announce it in the middle of December in advance of people, finishing their applications. So I think it's the best we can do. Otherwise, we need to stay here tonight until we're clear. So,
I mean,
Roger.
sorry to disagree, but I don't think that's fair to applicants. If somebody says, based on the last several years where there were all these grants that were either given or proposed by individual businesses, and I'm going to spend some time doing something, and then 2 weeks into that process, you say, we're kind of ruling you out of our criteria. I think that's I think you need to decide this quickly, and I agree, you can't do it at this meeting. I would be happy to work on a quick language with somebody.
I don't think this is a language issue. I think this is actually a
The
substance.
decision,
We need to find.
yeah.
Find the language. I would say that if anyone has been paying attention in the past, they're not going to start doing an application. They're going to assume that we don't give grants to businesses because
Right.
they went through the last thing, which is
Yeah.
fine with me if they assume that.
Yeah.
For the moment, because because we're going to establish a loan fund, which they can. So, I mean, I'd rather we were clear tonight, but I don't think people will say, well, based on the past, we apply.
No, I
Based on
agree
the
with
past,
that.
you wouldn't apply.
Yeah.
Because we had 5 or 6 different, we actually said, if you watch the video of the meetings, I mean, you guys probably saw some of them, or maybe all of them, you'd have a very clear sense that this was a judgment call, a case-by-case thing. You'd know what we were debating, you'd understand it.
Right.
So I think those are the best we can do. I mean, I take your point that as fast as we can do it, but we live in the real world, so it's okay. Are there any other? So I think Deborah and I, we have our instructions, right? Deborah, you comfortable with this? We'll announce this on November 10th-ish, and we'll give people 2 months. January 10th will be or whatever a weekday it will be, and then we'll work soon to schedule to try to block out the days in the end of January, and we'll figure out when the select board probably meets. Select board meets every 2 weeks, so by mid-February we can get the grants approved. Okay, any other business? Adjourn. The motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Deborah, now you're raising 2 hands. You seem to be overcompensating. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Good discussion.
Has anyone ever opposed the adjournment?
Good job, guys.
I don't think anyone has ever opposed it.